Hello, my name is Emmanuella Magriplis. I'm an associate professor in nutritional epidemiology and public health in Agricultural University of Athens, Greece. And I'm a visiting professor with the University of Patras, collaborating with Smart Family, Health4EUkids for the work package Smart Family. And today I will be presenting you some the information Smart Family best practice to support and empower families in promoting well-being and healthy lifestyle, which is specifically a pre-implementation phase of a Smart Family baseline situation by using SWOT analysis and scope analysis experiences from Greece. At this point, what I would like to stress is that we always need a motivating factor. A motivating factor that will shape our path. And therefore, we have the elephant, which is the majority of our brain. And then there's the little person that is trying to make the elephant move towards the correct path, which is the frontal lobe, the small area of our brain that is trying to move and motivate our elephant. Why this is necessary? Because this is where everything when it has to Health4EUkids and Smart Family takes into account. We need to be able to motivate not only the families and the children, but even the healthcare professionals or the educators in order to be able to implement and change the way they promote lifestyle and they promote dietary information and change to our children in order to reduce overweight and obesity, an epidemic that we see today. And this is the point where this joint action has targeted to improve our well-being. Other than that, you see little pictures on the top where we have little books that I will be presenting you in detail as we go on. And of course, continuing education information that we have also prepared in order to promote all these actions. What is the Smart Family Study in Greece and the two fronts that we have actually looked into? The main aims was to motivate healthcare professionals' intervention approach, family modify it from general treatment to personalized in the area of Patras, was the pilot area that we started. And therefore, from there on, to adapt the methodology for the remaining 6 Health ADM region, therefore expand based on what information and the feedback we received and any problems, or of course, what we actually achieved and proceed. Also, we did not forget the part with it when it comes to the breastfeeding, and I will explain why we took these two actions in terms of duration and, of course, initiation, therefore providing not only knowledge but also skills to women throughout when they were in their gestation and therefore being beside them throughout. And this was always through trying to find the most sustainable ways and approaches, which I will be presenting to you soon. This is the Health Smart Family. We also generated a website that I will be showing you in a little detail. Why these two fronts? Like we said, well, Smart Family Study in Greece, if we see the graph, we understand this is from the midterm evaluation of the EU Action Plan on Childhood Obesity that took place between 2014 and 2020. And the details that were actually monitored and disseminated in 2018, where we see Greece with the EL at this point having and showing the highest prevalence when it comes to childhood obesity for girls and boys for the 7 and 9-year-olds that we had details about. This is one front. The other front was the breastfeeding approach. Well, if we see again the details and the percentage of hospitals and maternities designated as baby friendly, therefore supporting breastfeeding, according to the initiative, and the percentage of babies born in such facilities, we see in 2016 one of the lowest prevalences in Greece, which is also shown in the bar as highlighted, EL, like Ελλάδα, which means Greece in this case. And this is the percentage of exclusively breastfeeding our children. Greece was only 1% by 6 months. We understand, therefore, that these two areas, and of course, we know that breastfeeding is one of the factors and the public health actions that we can support in order to ameliorate the well-being of our child, but also to decrease obesity rates as well. In children and guardians 2 to 12 years old, the action and the whole implementation phase that we want. This started in January 24, which was the first Smart Family intervention that began and the training. We have the implementation phase from January until July 2024, where new child guardian enrollment ended throughout after the training phase, where we had the healthcare professionals on board. In June, we had the first evaluation of children that were enrolled in January. In July, the last follow-up in children enrolled in April 2024. And in October 2024, after the first results and the first feedback received from the healthcare professionals, the first training in the pilot program, there we have started the program expansion. And at this point, we have reached the second training of the healthcare professionals. Throughout this process, what we did is get the information, receive the results, get the feedback, not only from the healthcare professionals, but also from a sample of the families that took part in the whole process, and therefore develop our new plan, which we will show you in the SWOT analysis before and after. Overall, before I proceed with the SWOT analysis, the pre and post implementation, let's see that we had 47 individuals that were trained to begin with, that started the training, 7 of which were actually active at the end. Total children and families enrolled were 41. The goal achieved as per primary aim, which was in the beginning 200 for the whole program, of course, was 20.5% from the pilot phase. When it came to self-evaluation questionnaire returned, we had 15 questionnaires returned, and of course, a 32% approximate response rate. Well, if we think about it, this is actually what we kind of expect. Above 20%, we believe it's a good response rate with how things are going, but we wanted a 40% as much as possible since this was in a small area. So therefore, we were below what we had targeted to begin with. In the second cycle, commencement of Greek Smart Family, which we said which started in July 24, we adjusted the training based on the feedback from the pilot phase. Then from September to December, we have trained the healthcare professionals, and of course, end of pilot program, adapted all materials in order to get the initiation program to the remaining 6 health ADM region, health pediatricians, with modifications based on primary feedback. Let's go into the SWOT modifications, pre-pilot versus post-pilot SWOT analysis. The key shifts in the SWOT perspective, and of course, looking from theory to evidence and SWOT evolution. In the beginning, so we go into the pre-pilot, from theory to evidence, concrete data replaces conceptual benefits overall. We have from general to specific, we have measurable outcomes versus broad goals. From potential to pathways, clear expansion opportunities identified, all of which we will see in detail. From assumptions to barriers, we have real implementation challenges that were revealed. And of course, from hopeful to realistic, better understanding of participant engagement and things to look into. And from planning to improvement, specific areas for program enhancement in order to make it more sustainable as is the majority and the aim for you kids. So pre-pilot, conceptual planning and theoretical benefits. Post-pilot, evidence-based assessment with concrete metrics. And the key learning is the implementation reveals new insights in all areas, quadrants, if you like. Strengths. In the beginning, the pre-pilot SWOT analytics for the strengths were comprehensive approach, targeting multiple populations. Focus on vulnerable groups in lower socioeconomic areas, of course. Multi-pronged objectives when it comes to breastfeeding, lifestyle, weight management, and educational components for practitioners and parents specifically. Post-pilot SWOTs and the strengths that were revealed and how these were modified were evidence-based results. We had 83.3% exclusive breastfeeding rates at 1 month, despite the 72% C-section rate, because it was something that we were anticipating based on the evidence that we had from large surveys. We have the academic output, generated abstracts for scientific conferences, clear success metrics, breastfeeding rates, family competence scores, and of course, validated tools that were used, which is the HCQ showed high scores, 6 to 8, so at an average of 6.8 out of 7 for practitioner approach. These are the tools that were used that, like I said, they're validated in order for the families to show us whether they were actually happy with the whole process of the new methodology, which is the Smart Family approach. We also have the Smart Family Health Card specifically, where families can select behaviors to address. And of course, the multidisciplinary engagement, we have pediatricians, dietitians, social counselors, and nurses, therefore building a more collaborative team approach. When it comes to opportunities, pre and post always, we have the beginning, policy support potential for child health initiatives, potential partnerships with hospitals and nurseries, technological advancements, opportunities, research and development potential, post-parallel opportunities and how this evolved, publication potential, promising results for peer-reviewed publication, therefore disseminating the results, make them clear, therefore strengthening the program, EU-wide implementation, part of European Joint Action Program, program integration. We wanted and we can have methods that could become standard pediatric protocols, which would be a good aim, and not only for Greece, but overall. Digital expansion, program adaptable for broader digital delivery, educational standardization, training system for healthcare continuing education. And this is why, like I said, we started the continuing education program, which is there and will remain to be used in many cycles. Collaborative foundation, we have universities, hospitals, and regional health authorities that are part of the program, have been educated and are motivated to proceed and continue the process. Planned follow-up studies, 3 to 6 months assessment for sustainability insights as well. There's no program and prevention program without evaluations throughout. Let's go into comparing weaknesses and challenges as well. What were the newly identified weaknesses? Only 29% of trained healthcare professionals actively participated. Reasons behind it? Well, we should think of the burden and the work-life balance, and therefore how this can be how they can be motivated, or how this can be implemented in their world setting, in their actual other job descriptions. 19.5% attrition rate in breastfeeding study. Therefore, and this was when it came to having the lactating nurse right on top of them about what happens when there's a video behind it. So this is where things are modified. We have high PCS scores, which are the skills that were acquired from the families show high variability in long-term maintenance. Therefore, although they like the program, they find the program motivating. The skills and how confident they felt were much lower. Implementation barriers, time, personnel, and material limitations, which is an issue that we need to take into account, and therefore proceeding slower in order to have something that can be implemented on the long run, and training throughout. Voluntary participation bias toward motivated participants as well. We have limited geographic scope, until now, we only have Patras. We need the feedback from the second, well, now that we're expanding as well, because social and other cultural effects may have an aspect. So we need to focus on that as well. And the current focus on short-term outcomes. We always need the long-term. At this point, we cannot expect to have a decrease in prevalence of overweight and obesity. We need to take action and to have patience, because it's a lifestyle we want to change in order to have the effect. And this is the area that most families and healthcare professionals need to be motivated about, because the results is what they're trying to achieve. And this is how they have been um, trained up to now. So this is the huge change with the smart family approach. For doing that, we have built the website, which I started with explaining in my presentation, which is the Healthy Smart Families, and we're welcoming all families and health educators to come connect and have tools that they can have at any point. We have two heroes. We have Socrates and Alice in this case, which trying to motivate children and families to get in the program and see the tools that are there for them. And of course, a public health book with these heroes, which you can download at any point or see online, where we have very nice pictures and active lifestyle. And these are being expanded to a lot more. There's public health for children area, not only targeting nutrition and well-being and telling and recommending the healthy eating patterns, but also lifestyle, trying to relax, sleep, the importance of these areas. But of course, having as much movement as possible. And this is not only integrating and going to basketball games or playing football, but also biking and going out with families as a total, and therefore having fun as well. Let's not forget, like we said, the other area, which is breastfeeding. So in this slide, you see I'm all my little one needs, wherefore promoting breastfeeding in the means of actually having the skills to go through it. In this case, we did not only support women through the knowledge and how beautiful it is and how important it is to breastfeed. This is actually known, but not only because there's one lactating agent that was on top, and of course followed through the women that are in the area of Patras. The goal in this case was to get in contact and close to as many women as possible, and therefore specific videos were also produced and prepared that can be viewed online after responding to specific questionnaires that they scan to this QR code, other than the link that is in the Smart Family. So we can get some information about their difficulties and why and how they're evolving with their breastfeeding, but also they can at any point review the videos and therefore get trained on the procedures as well. And these are the various questions and questionnaires, that they were either they're in the area of Patras and therefore they have the lactating agent, or they're online in order to respond with specific feedback. And we use the conjointly platform in order to collect all information. Therefore, what did we leave? Threats and challenges. Post and pre and post pilot. Newly identified challenges, therefore, with healthcare professionals, like we said, low practitioner adoption rate, family confidence, reliability, and long-term maintenance, that we said, competence public health initiatives, low completion rates for full intervention cycle, and limited data across different socioeconomic groups. Newly identified challenges for breastfeeding, limited data across different socioeconomic groups, EU funding dependency rate without transition to permanent support, the high C-section that may undermine breastfeeding goals, and common barriers, which were latching on and insufficient milk. Very often, these require cultural shifts and greater support as well. In both cases, EU funding dependency without transition to permanent support is also and always needs to be taken into account. The value of the pilot implementation revealed concrete strengths backed by evidence. identified specific barriers requiring attention, highlighted clear pathways for expansion, provided realistic view of implementation challenges, and created the foundation for data-driven improvement, transforming theoretical benefits into measurable outcomes as much as possible. We need to, in order to move forward, address all these issues, especially the participation rates, because not only this is not part of being in a study, but actually maintaining it throughout, and therefore having an action that will be here to stay sustainable, reduce the attrition, strengthen therefore long-term adherence, and expand geographic reach as much as possible, which we have started doing. Develop sustainability plans, reduce EU funding dependency pretty much, and of course, address systematic barriers. Work with medical community on C-section rates, for example, and not only, and also supporting breastfeeding, which is the other area that we're implementing, not only having the lactating agents, but also having the pediatricians on our side, as well as the gynecologists that women start throughout their gestation with. Course plan for digital adaptation, which is a leverage successful components for broad reach overall. Therefore, program modifications based on revised SWOT, adapting smart family methodologies following the pilot phase. We want to decrease in amount of data to collect and handle. We decrease the content material as well that the healthcare professions had to use throughout the process when it came to lifestyle counseling with the families, and more specific training and tool use, more interactive to make it more personal and motivate them even further, explaining that the hurdles are not difficult when they actually train themselves to it. Continuous education program is the next section, which are methodologies on handling children and families with overweight and obesity for healthcare professionals, which need to be specific because they have been trained in a different way. Therefore, how these can be used and the methodology to use it in more practical ways and not only introducing them to it. Child obesity seminar workshop, a practical workshop for healthcare professionals, translating knowledge into practice, which we already have completed first cycle, and now we're starting the second cycle. And of course, data collection, acquired baseline measures throughout the 6th Health ADM region in order to know where we're starting, and we will be following through in 6 months with the aim to assess the trend and strengthen the need of new approaches. Based on the data, these are the results. So we have in 3 different age groups that we collect the data, a total of 2,739 that were acquired throughout the 6th Health ADM region, 387 2 to 5-year-olds, 1,424 6 to 12-year-olds, and 928 13 to 18-year-olds, which were all measured, and the sex and the area they came from were also collected, and therefore we have a prevalence rate of 27.3 in males, 16.1% in females of overweight overall, and 8.5% in males of obesity, approximately 5.5 in the females for the distribution, with a trend as we're growing older, having higher rates. The majority were, like we said, between 6 to 12-year-olds that we collected, but the obesity status was higher in the 13 to 8-year-old, especially in boys. This is the Gantt chart, what we've done and what we will be doing from now on based on April 2025, where we're at now. These are all the actions that have taken place and areas that we still need to collect, and how things will evolve for the most sustainable practices, and how things will be changed in order to achieve a sustainable, smart family approach throughout, and not having something that will stop in 2025 with the end of the program. In order to do that, final slide with a general recommendation, program design, and participant engagement. We want to simplify data collection, like we said, and reduce content material burden because healthcare professionals have already too much to do. Address the attrition rates with targeted retention strategies, focus interventions on areas that will acquire better skills, and develops family-specific support for common barriers that we will be collecting through all the data that we're asking for to be given to us, therefore making it more specific. We need to create more accessible formats for different socioeconomic groups in order to be able to target and reach more and different levels, and therefore decrease potential inequalities, refine methodology based on implementation feedback, and develop school-based implementation approaches as the next step, because until now, we only have the healthcare professionals that we have contacted. When it comes to healthcare system and professional integration, develop, of course, sustainability plans to reduce the EU funding dependency, which is through the training and the material that we have built through the Smart Family website, and therefore load more into that, improve the healthcare professional participation beyond 29% rate, which means motivating further on the importance of the lifestyle counseling to reduce obesity in the long term and not what happens tomorrow, and create standardized protocols and continuing education program for them to follow. Addressing systematic barriers like the C-section is a high challenge, which of course is multiple dependent, but we need to address it and take it into account, and therefore expand methodology throughout the 6 healthy media region as we have repeated throughout. Thank you all for your participation and for listening to this webinar.